I had this whole afternoon planned out. Then someone in the comments asked me a question that I keep seeing asked wrong everywhere. Should I be in bond funds or T-bill ladders? And I stopped. Because the way most people frame this question is missing the actual choice. They treat it like it's about returns. It's not about returns. It's about control, predictability, and what happens to your plan when interest rates move. And I think you deserve the full story. So here it is. I'm recording this video right now because this topic is quietly costing retirees real money. Comment where you're watching from so I can see how far these videos travel. And real quick, if you value calm numbers first retirement breakdowns like this, do me a favor, subscribe and comment Retirement Risk Watch so the algorithm knows you want more of this. Now, in case you haven't seen what I'm talking about, here's the claim making the rounds. Bond funds are diversified. They're safe. Just buy a bond fund and forget it. Ladders are too complicated. And on the surface, it sounds airtight. But when you slow it down piece by piece, and you look at interest rate risk, duration, and what safe actually means for a retiree who needs predictable cash flow, you realize the reality is more nuanced. That's not the whole story. That's not even half of it. So I'm going to break down three things. First, what bond funds and T-bill ladders actually are and how they behave differently. Second, the hidden risk in bond funds that surprises retirees. And third, a framework for deciding which one or which combination fits your retirement paycheck plan. So, let's start with what we can verify in plain English. A bond fund is a pool of bonds managed as a fund. You buy shares of the fund and you get exposure to a large number of bonds. The fund has a duration, a measure of interest rate sensitivity. The longer the duration, the more the fund's price moves when rates change. A T-bill ladder, or bond ladder more broadly, is a set of individual bonds or T-bills purchased so that they mature at different scheduled intervals. When each one matures, you get back the face value. The price in between maturities doesn't matter to you in the same way because you're planning to hold to maturity. Here's the clean way to think about it. A bond fund is like renting space in a large building. The building has value, but it moves with the real estate market. A bond ladder is like owning individual units that you can walk into at a scheduled time and get paid. Both can work. The key is understanding what job they're doing. Now, here's where the surprise comes in for retirees. Bond funds can lose value when interest rates rise. And they can lose meaningful value in a short period if rates rise sharply. Retirees who moved into bond funds thinking they were safe have experienced this. They didn't lose money in stocks. They lost money in the safe part of their portfolio. That is a psychological and financial shock. Here's a question for you. Did you know that bond funds can lose significant value when rates rise? Comment yes, I knew, or no, I didn't. No judgment. The answer tells me whether this education is landing. Now, that doesn't make bond funds bad. It makes duration the key variable. Short-duration bond funds behave very differently from long-duration bond funds. A short-duration fund is much less sensitive to rate changes. A long-duration fund can swing significantly. And this is where retirees often get hurt. They buy bond funds without knowing the duration. They assume bonds equal safe. But a long-duration bond fund can drop in a rising rate environment almost as much as a moderate equity position. Same label. Very different behavior. Now, T-bill ladders and short-term bond ladders behave differently from long-duration bond funds in a critical way. Because you hold to maturity, intermediate price movements don't create the same psychological and forced selling problem. If you know that in 6 months a T-bill matures and pays you face value, you don't need to care what the market price of that T-bill is today. It's scheduled cash flow. That is powerful for a retiree who needs predictable income. Now, the skeptical alternative. But bond funds are more liquid and diversified. Plausible. Here's how the latter advantage can still hold. If your goal is predictable cash flow for living expenses, liquidity within a volatile price instrument is less useful than a scheduled maturity you can rely on. You can have both liquidity and predictability if you build the latter around your actual cash flow needs. So what does this actually mean for you? It means the question is not which is better. The question is, what job am I trying to do? If the job is I need predictable cash flow for specific months of living expenses, a ladder structure gives you scheduled certainty that a fund cannot replicate exactly. If the job is I want broad bond exposure and I don't need to match specific cash flow dates, a short duration bond fund can work with less complexity. If the job is I want long-term fixed income exposure and I'm fine with price fluctuation, a longer duration fund might fit, but know what you own. Here's the clean way to think about it. A ladder is a cash flow calendar. A fund is a market position. Both have a place. The question is which job needs which tool. Now, here's a simple action plan. No drama. Step 1. Write down your essential monthly spending and how many months of stability you want covered by predictable cash flow. That's your ladder sizing target. Step 2. Decide whether you want to build the stability layer with individual instruments, a short duration fund, or a combination. The key criteria: predictability, manageable complexity, and matching to your actual cash flow needs. Step 3. Check the duration of any bond fund you currently own or are considering. If you don't know the duration, you don't know the interest rate risk. Find out. Write it down. Decide X first, then Y. Keep it sane. Now let's talk about the practical ladder structure. Because people act like it's complicated. It doesn't have to be. A simple T-bill ladder might look like this conceptually. You buy a series of T-bills or short-term instruments that mature monthly or quarterly over the next 12 to 24 months. As each one matures, the cash funds that period's living expenses. Depending on conditions and your plan, you might roll some of them or let them pay out. You are essentially converting a lump of safer money into a scheduled cash flow calendar. The benefits: you know exactly when cash arrives. Price changes in between don't cause panic. There's no fund manager risk, no expense ratio eating returns, and no surprise distributions. The limits: building and managing a ladder takes some active maintenance. And if rates drop after you lock in, you might wish you had flexibility. That's plausible. That's a real trade-off. Now, let's map 3 plausible paths without pretending we can predict the exact market. Path 1. Rates stay elevated. In this world, T-bills and short-term ladders can provide a reasonable yield with predictable cash flow and minimal price risk. A good environment for ladder strategies. Path 2. Rates drop sharply. In this world, long-duration bond funds can appreciate and look great. Ladders lose the yield advantage but still deliver predictable cash flow. You didn't lose. You just had a different outcome. Optional Path 3. Volatile rate environment. In this world, short-duration strategies generally hold their value better than long-duration strategies. The ladder structure continues to deliver scheduled cash flow regardless of market price noise. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Most retirees don't have a bond strategy. They have bond exposure. There is a difference. A strategy has a purpose, rules, and a job. Exposure is just I have some bonds somewhere in my portfolio. If you don't know your duration and you don't know your cash flow schedule, you have exposure. And exposure without strategy can surprise you at the worst time. Here are the rules I use. And you can steal them. 1. Decide your maximum withdrawal guardrail first. Write it down. If you're losing sleep, you're pulling too hard, or you're invested too aggressive. 2. When markets run hard and you're up a lot, refill your cash runway. Not forever, just enough to buy you time. 3. Don't confuse income with safety. A high yield is not a safety guarantee. 4. The best time to make a retirement decision isn't when you're scared or hyped. It's when you can still breathe and do the math. So here's what we covered. Bond funds have duration risk. When rates rise, their price can fall meaningfully, especially longer duration funds. T-bill ladders and short-term bond ladders provide scheduled cash flow that insulates you from price volatility between now and maturity. The choice isn't which is better. The choice is what job am I doing? And does this tool match the job? The real risk isn't just the market. It's timing, taxes, and behavior. So if you're building the stability layer of your retirement paycheck, stop guessing and start assigning jobs. Now, here are my questions for you. First, are you currently using bond funds, a ladder structure, or a mix? Comment funds, ladder, or mix. Second, do you actually know the duration of your current bond exposure? Comment yes or no. If you got value out of this, subscribe and comment Retirement Risk Watch so I know you want to follow up when the next update hits. And if this helped you, share it with someone who's trying to retire without making expensive mistakes. All right, take care of yourself, stay sharp, and I'll talk to you soon. And just so we're crystal clear, this is educational content and commentary. It's my take based on publicly discussed information and my own reasoning. And it's not personal financial advice. I'm not your advisor. I don't know your goals or your risk tolerance. And I could be wrong. Do your own homework. Consider your situation. And if you need personal advice, get it from a qualified professional who knows your situation.